What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr Wargames, and today I'm going to bring you a ritual focused Dark Magician deck. That is right, sorry it has been such a long time since I've brought you a profile. It has been crazy this week, but we will bring you many more in the upcoming days. So, if you would like to see a 100% pure version of Dark Magician, and it will of course be for casual play, then smash that like button. Getting it to at least 50 likes within the first 24 hours will unlock that video for you. With all of that out of the way, we're going to dive head first into this profile, and I'm going to show you some spicy little touches and what you can do if you want to make your deck ritual focused. So, we start off with what I would probably say is the staples of the deck, and that is of course 2 Dark Magician, 1 Red Eyes Black Dragon. As much as it will be ritual focused, you still need to be playing Dragoon. It is your competitive card. It is the card that you can follow up with and win you the game the next turn. It is also a card that you can start with and it will ultimately win you the turn. You'd be very foolish if you have access to all of this to not attempt to at least play it, because it is that much of a powerful card. When you're coming up against decks that are going to be running DPE, you're coming up against decks that are going to be running like a Prankage double Raigeki, you do need to be able to have a boss monster that is literally so hard for them to out, it will give you a fighting edge. Then of course we've got the 1 Dark Magician Girl, because you do want to be drawing 2 cards as consistently and as easily as you possibly can. And you can do that even if you don't go Verte Dragoon as well, and I'll show you exactly how you do that too. Then for the ritual monsters themselves, 2 Illusion of Chaos alongside a Magician of Chaos. Now, in this particular build, we will be focusing on trying to actually summon Illusion of Chaos, which is very, very good. The only downside of Illusion of Chaos is it needs to have a Dark Magician in the graveyard, and it needs to do exactly what Magician's Combination does, which means it has to be able to summon the card before it can negate a card. So for those of you who do not know, Illusion of Chaos does have another effect rather than just revealing itself to search. And it gives you a quick effect when your opponent activates a monster effect. You get to return this card to the hand, and if you do, special summon a Dark Magician from the graveyard. If you do that, the activated effect is negated. Now, the trigger effect is the quick effect to cost, and it is not a bounce back or summon as cost. It does all of it in one go. So it does leave this card open to stuff like Imperms and Veilers should they try and trigger it during your turn. The Magician of Chaos has the ability that when a spell card or effect is activated, you get to pop a card your opponent controls. So you target it and then destroy it. If this Ritual Summon card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to special summon a Chaos or Blackluster Soldier ritual monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions. So yes, it can get you into Illusion of Chaos. It can also get you into the one that I am not playing, which is the level 8 Master of Chaos. And the reason that I've really cut that right at the last minute is for the pure fact that it's such a tricky bugger to kind of get onto the board. For the pure fact that it is a level 8. So a lot of your ritual spells do basically say it needs to use Dark Magician. It needs to equal the levels. So unless you're going to go for a Chaos Max route, which I've done previously, where you're playing like Cosmo Wizard and basically being able to try a Cosmo Queen to be able to try and use your vanilla level 8s to get to it, it's really not worth going that far out of the way to get to it. The penultimate ritual monster is the 1 Saravis. Now, I was contemplating cutting this or keeping it. If you wanted to cut it, another option that I would highly recommend, and I really do like its involvement in the deck, is Gravity Dragon. And the reason that's so good is it is a level 7, so it can be ritual summoned using Advanced Ritual Art and the other cards that you are naturally doing as well. But it does have that added effect that you ritual summon this card with Odd Eyes Advent, but obviously you can use Advanced Ritual Art as well. When this card is special summoned, you get to return all spell and trap cards your opponent controls to the hand. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect's activation. So straight away, if you activate Advanced Ritual Art, your opponent will be like, okay, cool, whatever. He's clearly going to go for like one of these 2 cards. You then slam this down, this bounces everything back up. So if you're facing Sky Strikers, if you're worried about droplets, if you're worried about anything else, it all comes back up to the hand. It's also very, very good should your opponent be like, well, okay, I'm playing a ritual deck, I don't need to use DPE to pop Scythe. And then you go, okay, cool, summon this, bounce everything back. They've got no response to it at all, which is really, really cool. But as you can kind of see, it's so good going second, it does pretty much nothing going first. It also means that your opponent must pay 500 life points to activate card effects, which if you're getting close to time is a card you would side in and then obviously aim to summon it, so that they're constantly having to pay life points to activate anything. Then the last ritual monster that I've gone with is the White Relic of Dogmatika. Now you can play the Warrior Knight if you wanted to, and ultimately the reason I went with the Relic over the Knight is for the pure fact that this is just actually a hell of a lot easier to get out. The White Knight is a level 8, which can be very, very tricky. You do use the Dogmatika ritual spell, which does send from the extra deck to the graveyard, but what makes this so much better is, in theory, a Nadir Servant becomes a +1, and off the back of that as well, if you do decide to ritual summon this card, it then gives you a monster on the board for pretty much free, and then allows you to get into another ritual monster or spell. So the way this works is Nadir Servant, because this is 500, can actually send your Herald of Arclight. By doing so, you then have the ability to search out the ritual spell for this, because Nadir would search this out, and then the Herald of Arclight could search out the ritual spell. Now the ritual spell we went with is the Dogmatika Calamity, which is the old one for Lightning Vortex. They did get a new one, which basically lets you ritual summon by banishing materials from the graveyard. But in doing so, what I thought was really good about this is you activate Nadir, this basically replaces Nadir, and then the Herald of Arclight can get you this, or of course it can get you any of your ritual monsters or any of your ritual spells. If you do go for the Dog Calamity, what this then gives you is you activate this, and you get to send a second Herald of the Arclight from your extra deck to the graveyard and summon this card down in defense. By doing so, what that then allows you to do is trigger the Herald of the Arclight, which can then of course get you into Illusion of Chaos or whatever else you need. Now, unlike the White Knight has the effect that I believe it's when your opponent activates a card or effect, you get to send a card from your extra deck to the graveyard. But it does lock you out of the extra deck while it is face up on the field, whereas the Relic doesn't. So the idea would be that with the White Knight, you're sending something at the TIS and it becomes a free disruption. With Relic, what this lets you do is, if it is ritual summoned, you get to target 2 face-up monsters on the field, make one of those monsters gains attack equal to the other monster's attack. Level 8 or higher Dogmatika monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. If a monster or monsters is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck, except during a damage step, you get to look at your opponent's extra deck and send one monster from it to the graveyard. So the best thing about that is, if your opponent goes Verte, if your opponent tries to do anything before Fusion Destiny, you get to use the effect of this to look at their extra deck and then send their DPE. I'll be amazed if most people are playing multiple DPEs, so straight away you take away one of their biggest threats. Ultimately, you could take out Verte Anaconda if you're worried that they're going to try and build into anything else. You can also try and take out their next step. So like, for example, if they were playing, it's a little bit more difficult against deck that plays multiples, but if they were playing like Baron, you can obviously then go and rip the Baron out of the extra deck and you don't have to worry about it. So it's a cool little interaction, and the reason you want to play this is for the pure fact that Nadir Servant is a +1. So it just gives you that little bit extra. Whether you actually search out the ritual spell or not, whether you use the ritual spell or not is fine, because you can just send it off of souls. If you wanted to activate the second Nadir Servant as well, then you can use Illusion of Chaos to put this card back into the deck, and then you get to activate Nadir Servant again, send in the second Herald of Arclight, and then doing the exact same thing you've already done. Carrying on with the monsters, Triple Magician Souls. Now in this build, it's just even more important for the pure fact that it can treat itself as a level 1, a level 6, or a level 7, depending on what you're trying to ritual summon into. Now ideally, if you go to a level 7, you've got easier access to these guys here. You can also ritual summon out Saravas, so its second effect pretty much is like the same second effect of Illusion of Chaos, can come up, but it's rare you're going to do so. You've then got Triple Magician's Rod, and then 2 Manju. Now, I did look into Diviner, and the reason I chose not to go for Diviner was for the pure fact that if I played Diviner, even though my extra deck would, in this particular version, still stay the same, if you're playing Diviner, it then dictates what you need to play in your extra deck. So if I wanted to cut the Dogmatika package from this, I would then open up so many more spaces that I could use because I was choosing Manju over Diviner. The other thing with Diviner as well is, yes, it does make itself a level 6, but the biggest issue with that is that, again, you don't really have anything that is a level 6 ritual. You're still going to need to use 2 monsters to make it. Yes, it does have that additional effect that if it is tributed, you get to special on a fairy from the deck, but in this particular build, you're not really playing anything that utilizes a level 2 fairy that's going to get you as much as you need to. Ultimately, you could do, if you thought about it, bring out Petite Angel. That would then search you out your Cyber Angel ritual, and then you just use it as draw fodder off of the souls. But ultimately, what's the point in doing that you're just then playing an additional brick that you're never actually going to use. So the Manju pretty much serves the same job. It just doesn't need me to send Herald of Arclight for my extra deck. It just does it on its own. So the same things that would stop Diviner would also stop this, and it wouldn't affect my extra deck. In this particular version, because I do play this, you could easily put the Diviner in here. But another thing as well, because it is a level 4, I could also use this as ritual fodder for this. Not that you'd want to, but sometimes it can come up, and this is just the reasons I've got it. The last card I got is the one Timaeus Dragon. Now, this can be cut completely if you want to. The reason I've got it in here is it does act as a pseudo additional fusion spell. And then it kind of opens up, like, if I've opened up Manju and Rod, I've got no issue normal summoning the Manju, because then I know that this can send Rod to summon itself down and then fuse. And when I'm playing stuff like Spoiler Fusion Deployment, Magician's Rod, and also other cards that become Dark Magician when they're on the field, Timaeus Dragon can actually be really, really important to kind of get me where I need to go. It can also help you get into the Chaos Fusion monster as well, for the pure fact that you're playing 3 Chaos cards, and then of course you're playing 2 Dark Magician as well. So that's it for the monster lineup. I kind of still playing around with some of the rituals. If you want to make it more ritual focused, the first one you'd probably cut would be the Timaeus Dragon, and then you'd be looking into the possibilities of cutting the Red Ice Fusion package. Like I said, that's not something I would advise, because Dragoon is just such a powerful card for us. But if you are completely adamant you do not want to play Dragoon, then they are 2 very easy cards you can take out. For the spells, we've got triple Soul Servant alongside triple Preparation of Rites. All relatively straightforward and simple on that one. The best thing about Preparation of Rites is it can search you out all of your ritual monsters that you're currently playing. And if you have souls before you activate Preparation of Rites, souls can actually send your ritual spells in the form of Advanced Ritual Art and Chaos form to the graveyard for draws. Then you activate Preparation of Rites, you get it back. So it's just basically a free draw. Nadir Servant, I've already talked about this. This is like a 1 card that is a +1, because you then get your ritual monster, get the ritual spell, and what you need to. 2 Secrets of Dark Magic, like this can be really cool to Eternal Soul, bring back Dark Magician, and then activate this during your opponent's turn to get into one of your ritual monsters. The biggest issue that I kind of have with this is that it does say you need to use Dark Magician or Dark Magician Gale to conduct your ritual summon. So this is the only way we can get the Black Magician of Chaos Max out, but it's also very restrictive, because it's like, right, okay, well if you don't have Dark Magician on the field or in the hand, you're not going to be able to conduct it. Also, on the back of that, the fact that this is a fusion and a ritual spell, it can also help in the combo with your Illusion of Chaos, because keep in mind, Illusion of Chaos will then bounce itself back to the hand and bring back a Dark Magician from grave. So then if you've got this set, you can actually trigger it and then summon out your Chaos Magician, your Master of Chaos, which can then bring back a light or a dark and start to trigger additional effects from that point on. But that does, again, restrict you in certain places as well, because sadly, your Magician of Chaos is not like a quick effect to nuke the board. Off the back of that as well, the one good thing about this, because it is a quick play, is you can drop it during the battle phase, so it does give you a bit more aggression. I've gone with 2 Allures for the pure fact that we actually play a lot of monsters that can become surplus to requirements once you get going. So maybe less so in the early stages of the game, but like if I open up multiple rods, I've got no issue activating a lure, because I'm going to be able to loop it as I see fit, and it just allows me to kind of dig further through the deck. If you don't want to play a lure, you can cut this quite easily. It's not something you absolutely must play. I just thought it was kind of something that this particular deck needed, because you don't want to be opening up with something like rituals. It's always the same, that you need the ritual spell plus the ritual fodder and the ritual monster, which is why we play cards such as Chaos Form and Advanced Ritual Art, which basically says, well, as long as you've got the material or as long as you've got the ritual monster, the other one can come from the deck. We've then got 2 Dark Magical Circles. Now, I'm denied about playing this at 1 or 2. I feel, again, in this particular version, it probably needs to be at 2, for the pure fact that you can get into your Secret of Dark Magic. It's 1 less card that you need to be searching off a rod. It also sets you up your Magician of Chaos. Now, what makes this so good is, ideally what you want to be doing, because this counts as Dark Magician, when you bring this back, it will trigger Circle. By triggering Circle, you then also get to trigger Magician of Chaos. So you would bring this back off of Eternal Soul, go Chainlink 1 Dark Magical Circle, and then Chainlink 2 your Magician of Chaos. That will then let you pop a card, and then it will let you circle a card. It also then gives you a nice little ability of being able to try and chain block as well, which can be very, very important. If you do want to cut it down to 1, again, you quite easily can do. I have cut out Magician's Salvation, because I am just going for 2 Eternal Souls to try and draw into it hardcore, and kind of go from that way. Then we've got 2 Fusion Deployment. Now the reason I've got this in here is because we play the Dark Magicians, and in theory do play Dragoon, you can get a Red Eyes from the deck. If you open up Magical Eyes Fusion, for example, you can activate this to get the Red Eyes from the deck, activate Souls to get Dark Magician from deck, and either send it to the graveyard or summon it. You've then got the ability to Ritual Summon using the Red Eyes Black Dragon on the field. Or, of course, you can banish it from the graveyard later on using something... banish Dark Magician from the graveyard using Chaos form. So, the idea is that you could get Red Eyes from the deck, but you can also get Dark Magician, and you can also get Dark Magician Gale. So, whether you want to use that to be aggressive and go for all-out attacks, or whether you want to be using it as fodder, again, this just kind of counts as a pseudo-level alternator because it lets you get to level 6s or 7s directly from the deck. For the ritual spells, we've got the 1 Chaos Form, the 1 Advanced Ritual Art, and the 1 Dogmatika Calamity. Now, again, you're only going to be using this to ritual summon 1 monster, but the fact that it lets you send from the extra deck can be a nice little plus. If you want to lean into the Dogmatika engine a little bit more in this deck, you can start looking into playing stuff like Shadow Schism, the White Knight as well, but I've kind of tried to keep it at an absolute minimum of 4 cards, for the pure fact that Nadir 7 is such a good plus card in this particular ritual version. The Advanced Ritual Art, the fact that it lets you send your ritual monster, your material from the deck to the grave is near enough invaluable. It can Foolish the Red Eyes if you've opened up Magical Eyes Fusion and you can already get a Dark Magician to the graveyard. And then, of course, Chaos Form can banish the Dark Magician from the graveyard. Again, it's very rare that you're going to have multiple rituals. And what I mean by that is, once you've activated Advanced Ritual Art, you're probably going to get into the Magician of Chaos and you're just going to constantly loop him from the graveyard with Eternal Soul. You would then get your 1 Illusion of Chaos, which you're then going to be using to bounce back to your hand and loop him around as much as you need to. So you kind of want to minimize these as much as possible because you have so many easy routes to get to it, whether it be Manju, whether it be Nadir Servant, and if you did put Diviner in, that would then be another option for you. For the fusion spells, we've got the 1 Magical Eyes Fusion, the 1 Red Eyes Fusion, for the pure fact that, again, if you don't open up well or your opponent slows you down in order to get to your ritual plays and you can't conduct them, you can still fall back on Verte Dragoon and still set up multiple draws and then go for your ritual plays the following turn. It'd be very, very silly, like I said, to not play this. And the only reason I haven't got this at more in this particular build is because I don't want to open it. Now, I know that is very, very weird, but in this particular version, I don't want to open up, activate Red Eyes Fusion, and sit on a Dragoon. That's one of the last things I want to do in a ritual version of this deck. Now, obviously, in the most competitive version of this deck, I want to see Red Eyes Fusion all day long and as soon as I possibly can, and just hope and pray that my opponent doesn't have Ash. What is also really nice, should you open this, you have a lot of cards that will bait your opponent out for you to then activate this. Again, like I said, you don't want that to happen. You do want to be sending this off of Verte as a backup, or you want to be searching it during your opponent's standby phase to basically say to them, kill me now, otherwise during my next turn I'm going to activate Red Eyes Fusion and I'm going to get myself a Dragoon. And I'll show you how you do that when we get to the extra deck as well. The last spell is the 1 Dark Magic Inheritance because, as you can see, we play a heck of a lot of spells. And then what that will ultimately do is Dark Magic Inheritance can directly search me from the deck, either a Chaos Form or a Secrets of Dark Magic. So if I'm able to get absolutely everything I need, but I'm missing one of the ritual components, I can then activate this and it will get me to it. It also gets me into my Circle or my Eternal Soul, because like I said, if you're going to focus on the ritual plays, you want to be able to successfully summon the Magician of Chaos and then loop him around with Eternal Soul and Circle combo, and that's pretty much going to give your opponent a lot to worry about, because you're turning a 1 target banish into a 1 target banish and a 1 target pop, and kind of go from there. The last 2 cards are 2 Eternal Soul. The reason for this is if I do choose to send it off of Souls, or if one does get destroyed, I then want to be able to get to the second one. Because that Magician of Chaos is, like, ultimately, when you're just playing Dark Magician, your Eternal Soul is ideally trying to bring back Dark Magician to either wall up so you don't die, or you'll bring it back to trigger Circle. Whereas in this version, you're basically being able to bring back an effect version of Dark Magician, which is then going to be able to trigger to pop a card. So it can be very, very important to do it that way, and it does give you a lot of options to play around with as well. So that's it for the main deck. Again, if you want to increase the competitiveness of this, you can look at your stronger staples, your stuff like your droplets, your chalices are also very, very good. You can go more hand trap variant, but if you were to do that, I would probably change the deck to be a more control orientated version as well. Moving on to the extra deck, we've got 2 Dragoons. You could arguably cut this down to 1 if you wanted to, because again, it's not our focus, but it is just one of our power plays. And the reason it's such a good power play is for the fact that off of Nadir's Servant, if we really wanted to, because we already have the ritual components that we need, you can actually send a Predaplant Chimera Flesia, and then that will then search you out a Magical Ice Fusion or a Red Ice Fusion for the next turn. So it's basically, I'm going to control you with my Dogmatika Ritual Monster and loop around my Dark Magician of Chaos from the graveyard, and then if you can't deal with that, I'm going to win the game the next turn by going into my fusions. The 1 Dark Magicians, in this particular version, your extra deck is so free that you've got a lot of space depending on what you want to play and what you want to go for, which is why I'm also playing the Magician of Chaos, which you will successfully summon for the pure fact that you're playing 3 Chaos monsters already in the main deck and all of them are searchable, and you're playing a decent mixture of light and darks with your Manju, your Timaeus Dragon, and your Relic Dogmatika. We've then got the 1 Quintet. Now again, if you were to lean into the Dogmatika version a little bit more, this is where Quintet can really shine, because off of Nadir, you can make sure that you're sending spellcasters, so that's where your Shadow monsters come into play. You've also then got to keep in mind as well that Relic is a spellcaster with a different name, and that should you start putting more cards in your graveyard through grind, rather than going into Dragoon, you can easily go into Quintet. After searching out of this, you've then got Quintet to play around with. Keeping in mind as well that you do have Magician of Chaos, which will treat itself as a different name if you use it from field or hand, I believe, and then off the not field, sorry, from hand. And I also believe it registers the name from where they're being fused to. So when it's banished, it's not treated as Dark Magician. I could be wrong on that, but it's just something to look into, that you are playing multiple spellcasters that have different names. The 1 Nadir, again, off of Nadir Servant, if you've got everything you need, you don't need to search, this can be a Nadir Servant disruption, which can be very important. Of course, it also makes it a very easy transition if you go, right, well, I don't want to play Manju, I'm quite happy with the way the extra deck is, I'm actually going to play Diviner instead, and then Diviner can become a free normal summon interrupter that can lead you ultimately to a Verte should you need to. The 2 Herald of Arc Lights, I've already explained the combo off of Nadir that gives you a 1 card like kind of power play through, or a 1 card double search and sets you up a ritual monster, and then if you add a Souls to that, so it becomes a 2 card combo, you end your board on 2 ritual monsters, and that can be very invaluable for you. For the Link cards, we've gone back to the good old faithful Unduct and Artemis. Again, these can help you go into Appaloosa if you want to, but it also gives you that ability that should you desperately need a dragon for your fusion plays, you can do it. Again, we're relying less on the links because links themselves don't have levels. They don't actually help you get into your ritual plays, but it is just a very easy link climb height to get into your power plays and your basically game enders, which is why, of course, we've got the 1 Verte, the 1 Dark Charm or Gloomy, the 1 Selene, and of course the 1 Access Code. So this here is just a 2-card engine that climbs up, can steal your opponent's DPE, and get into an access code. So it's one of them ones that you may not use as much in this particular build, and if you did want to, I feel that a better ritual version of the deck would be utilising more of the Dogmatika cards, but then you would take it away from being a Dark Magician ritual deck into a Dark Magician Dogmatika ritual deck. And that's kind of something I wanted to avoid, but if it's something you want to see, then just let me know in the comments and I'll be more than happy to put a fair balanced version together for that particular route. Anyway, that is it for the profile. I hope this has helped you kind of, if you do like the idea of building a ritual version of Dark Magician, I hope this has helped you kind of come up with a couple of ideas for yourself and a couple of ideas of where you'd like to take it. I really like the ritual monsters for the deck. I just feel that the ritual mechanic itself is a little bit slow. Before I go, if you're asking about the, I believe it's called High Ritual Art, the one that lets you ritual summon the monster from the deck as long as you've got the material. The reason I chose not to use that was for the pure fact that it needed the material to be on the field. So it did rely a lot heavily on fusion deployment, and it also relied a lot heavily on Magician's Souls. So with taking that into account, it was a little bit more difficult to kind of justify it over something like advanced ritual art and stuff like that. But it is something you can use. You would just need to make sure that that monster is taken off the board before the end phase of the next turn, because it does get shuffled in. So you would then need to have the ability of linking it off or fusing it off to put it into the graveyard to then use Eternal Soul to start looping it around. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe and happy dueling.